There are nights when the silence has a strange weight to it. It makes you reflect on things long past, on the roads you've traveled, and on the companions you've had, the ones you thought would always be there, as steadfast as the mountains in the distance. I used to think George was one of those mountains. And then, a midnight phone call shattered that quiet lake. A call that changed everything. On the other end of the line was the voice of Martha, his wife. It wasn't a voice anymore. It was the sound of a fear shattering from within, like a piece of old glass, already cracked on the inside. All she could repeat was one thing, "Harold, it's George, he had a..." My heart stopped. My whole world tilted on its axis. It couldn't be. George. My best friend since our college days. The man I still jokingly called the captain of his health. He didn't smoke, didn't drink, and every meal was meticulously planned. He was the only person I knew who read every single nutrition label on every box of food. His cholesterol numbers were like poetry, and high blood pressure was never an issue. He did everything perfectly right. The next day in the hospital, amidst the smell of antiseptic and the soulless beeping of machines, I saw the helpless shrug of his doctor. They said all his usual numbers were what they'd call ideal. They couldn't find the usual suspect in their medical textbooks. And it was that confusion, that helplessness, that planted a haunting question in my mind. A question that burrowed deep into my thoughts during the long nights I sat alone with a cold cup of tea, staring into the thick darkness outside. If it wasn't cholesterol, if a man who did everything right could still fall, then what silent killer is hiding in the blood vessels of people like us? An invisible enemy that 99% of routine tests miss. An enemy with symptoms as vague as mist, one that could be targeting you, right now, without you even knowing it. In today's video, I'm not just sharing information. I want to walk you through the pages of the journal I kept during my journey with George to find an answer. A journey of truth, of fear, and hope. At the end of this video, I will share with you the very first clue I found, a simple number on a blood test that, once you know its name, you can ask your doctor to check immediately. It could be the very thing that saves your life. Walk this path with me so that we can unmask this nameless enemy. And if these words resonate with a concern you hold in your own heart, quietly leave a comment below. On this quest for peace of mind in our senior health, we are not alone. When I was a history teacher, I always told my students, a map is only useful if it shows the right way. If you use an old map to navigate a changed land, you will get lost. For decades, modern medicine has given us a map for heart health. On that map, there is a giant, bold monster drawn in dark ink, named cholesterol. We were taught to fear it, to control it, to fight it. My friend George spent his entire life watching over that monster. But he still got lost. And that made me realize a frightening truth: the map we have all been trusting is outdated. The landscape of our health has new roads and new dangers that the old map simply doesn't show. My journey began by searching for those unexplored territories on the map. I spoke with experts, and I read hundreds of studies that are often overlooked. And I discovered that while we were all staring at cholesterol, there were other, more subtle warning signs, like the tiny footnotes in the corner of the map that no one ever reads. These are the markers of chronic inflammation. Think of it as a slow, smoldering fire burning deep inside the lining of our blood vessels. It doesn't roar, it just simmers, day after day, month after month, making the vessel walls brittle and fragile. Doctors can measure it with a test called CRP, or by looking at the ratio of good fats to bad fats. These were the first clues, but they still weren't the silent killer I was looking for. And then, I found it. A name buried deep in the specialized literature. A name most doctors will never mention in a routine checkup. Its name is homocysteine. It sounds complicated, doesn't it? But let me explain it in the simplest way I can. Imagine our body is a sophisticated woodworking factory. Every day, we eat protein, those are the fine logs of wood brought into the factory. The factory then turns those logs into wonderful products that build our muscles and repair our cells. But in any woodworking factory, the process of creation also produces sawdust. Homocysteine is that sawdust. A little bit of sawdust is no problem. Our body has a professional cleanup crew to take care of it. But what happens if that cleanup crew suddenly goes on strike? The sawdust piles up. More and more each day. It fills the factory, jams the machinery, and more dangerously, it becomes an extremely flammable material. All it takes is a small spark, like a bit of stress or a sleepless night, and the whole factory can go up in flames. That fire, inside our bodies, is an inflammation, a heart attack, a stroke. The problem for George, and millions of others, wasn't that his body was making sawdust. It was that his cleanup crew wasn't working efficiently. And why did they go on strike? Well, that is another story, a mystery hidden deep within our genes, in something called MTHFR. A difficult name to pronounce, but it is the very key to understanding why some of us are at a higher risk than others. I know this is a lot of new information. But do you see? When we start to get a new map, things slowly begin to make sense. If you found this woodworking factory explanation helpful, please do me a favor and comment with the number 2 below. Just so I know I'm on the right track in this journey of sharing. Have you ever stood alone before a mirror in the early morning, when the rest of the world is still asleep? You're not there to comb your hair, not to see how you look for the day. You stand there, simply to look deep into the person staring back. To look into the eyes that have seen so much change, to look at the lines that are no longer signs of age, but living maps that trace the journey of a lifetime. And then, in that silence, a whisper rises from the deepest part of you. It's not a sound, it's a feeling. A vague, indescribable feeling that something isn't quite right. That was the very feeling that George, my friend, had carried with him in silence for years. He told no one. He hid it, even from himself, and especially from me. It wasn't until much later, as I sat by his hospital bed, in a space filled only by the dry, steady beep of the heart monitor, like a clock counting down, that he reached for my hand, a frail and weakened grip, and confessed. His voice was as soft as a breath, as if he were afraid to disturb the stillness of the room. "Harold. I lied. To everyone, and myself. I wasn't as fine as I always pretended to be. There were days," he continued, "when I felt a strange kind of fatigue. It wasn't the tiredness you feel after a day of gardening or playing golf. It was a weariness that came from the very marrow of my bones, an exhaustion I couldn't explain. I ignored it. I just thought, well, I'm just getting old. And sometimes, my heart would skip a beat, just for a moment, and then it would be normal again. And I would tell myself, it's probably just stress or too much coffee." Hearing those words, I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Not just out of pity for George, but because I realized a painful truth. The whisper that George had heard in the mirror each morning. I had heard it too. And you, have you ever heard it? That persistent fatigue you keep blaming on your age? That fleeting chest pain you dismiss as insignificant? That feeling of breathlessness after a few stairs that you think is just from being out of shape? Have we, who have journeyed more than halfway through life, become too accustomed to accepting these symptoms as an inevitable part of growing older? Have we unintentionally ignored our own body's faint cries for help? A warning from the silent killer that we've told ourselves is nothing to worry about. If you have ever felt something similar, even just once, I'd like to ask you to do something very simple for me. Please, comment with the number 1 below. Just the number 1. It's not a like button. It's a signal. A signal for me, and for everyone else watching, to know that we are all in the same boat. And more importantly, for you to know that you are not alone in this silent struggle. And that, my friends, is the first, most crucial step, for us to find the light together. Ignorance is like a pitch-black room. We live in it, we walk through it, fumbling, stumbling, and fearing the invisible monsters that might be lurking in every corner. We fear tripping, we fear the unknown. And slowly, we come to accept that darkness is an unchangeable fate of old age. But I learned something precious on this journey. All it takes is a single matchstick. A single matchstick of knowledge is enough to illuminate everything. And when the light comes on, a wonderful truth is revealed. There are no monsters. There are only pieces of furniture that have been misplaced and chairs that have been knocked over, and just need to be set right. My journey to understand homocysteine with George was the journey to find that matchstick. And today, with the greatest respect, I want to pass it on to you. Chapter 1, The 7-Item Paycheck, for Your Guardian Army. Do you remember our story about the woodworking factory and the cleanup crew? I want us to remember this above all else. Our enemy is not homocysteine, not the sawdust created from labor. The real enemy is a loyal cleanup crew that has been starved. They have worked tirelessly for us for 50, 60, and 70 years, without a single complaint. But we, in the carelessness of modern life, have forgotten to pay them. And their pay isn't money. Their pay is a specific set of micronutrients, the essential tools they need to do their job. So, what do we need to pay them? Today, let's go over the 7-item paycheck for your heart's guardian army. The first and most important payment is what I call the core triad, the most elite soldiers of the B vitamin family. The first soldier is vitamin B9. But I must emphasize, not the synthetic folic acid that is often added to cereals and bread. Think of folic acid as a rough, uncut key. A young, healthy body might be able to slowly file it down to make it work. But for our bodies, especially for those of us who carry that slightly lazy MTHFR gene, this filing process becomes incredibly difficult. It's like trying to start an old car on a freezing winter morning. Why struggle like that when we have a better option? We need the active form, the key that is already perfectly cut, called methylfolate. It goes straight into the lock, turns, and the door opens immediately. The second soldier is vitamin B12. It is the navigator, the indispensable partner to B9. B9 points the way, and B12 provides the energy for the journey. And just like B9, we need the form the body can use instantly without conversion, called methylcobalamin. It is the most loyal of companions. And the third soldier is vitamin B6. This is a special one. When the main road is blocked, B6 opens up a side path, another route to deal with the sawdust, ensuring the factory never gets congested. Its active form is called P5P. These three are the essential pillars. But for the army to operate at full capacity, for the symphony of our health to be complete, they need 4 more able-bodied helpers. They are vitamin B2, riboflavin, betaine, or TMG, NAC, and L-carnitine. I won't confuse you with all these complex names. All you need to know is that these 7 payments are like the 7 notes of a musical chord. Without one note, the music can still play, but it will never be truly harmonious or whole. And this is what an erudite cardiologist, a friend of mine, told me, and I quote, "Harold, giving patients the active forms of B vitamins is like pushing a stalled car downhill instead of trying to start it on a steep incline. We need to make things as easy as possible for the body, not create more burdens for it." This is a shift in thinking, isn't it? If you found this information about the core B vitamin triad helpful and eye-opening, please help me by commenting with the number 3 below. Just so I know, the light from this matchstick is spreading. Chapter 2, The Silent Saboteurs and a Note of Caution. Paying the cleanup crew their full wage is critical. That's step 1. But we also need to wisely look around our factory to see if there are any saboteurs secretly hindering their work. The first saboteurs come from 2 internal organs we often take for granted, our liver and our kidneys. Think about our liver. It's not just an organ, it is the general manager of the entire factory. It coordinates everything. If this general manager is overwhelmed by the burden of alcohol, sugar, or bad fats, leading to a fatty liver. He will no longer have the energy or focus to manage the cleanup crew effectively. Things will descend into chaos. And what about the kidneys? The kidneys are the final gateway for clearing out all the waste and excess. If this gateway is jammed, if its function declines, then no matter how diligently the cleanup crew works, the sawdust will get trapped inside, accumulating day by day, poisoning the factory from within. The second saboteur can sometimes come from the very things we believe are helping us, certain medications. I want to say this very carefully and with the utmost respect. Some common medications for diabetes, like metformin, or the acid-reducing drugs, PPIs, that so many of us take daily, can have an unintended side effect. They can inadvertently deplete the body's precious supply of vitamin B12, one of our most elite soldiers. And this is an extremely important note of caution that I want you to remember. Please do not, ever, stop taking any medication your doctor has prescribed for you. Not. That would be very dangerous. Instead, do something wiser, become proactive. Be a partner with your doctor, not a passive patient. At your next visit, talk to your doctor. Ask them politely. Doctor, I've read some information about homocysteine, and how my medication might affect vitamin B12 levels. Could we consider checking these levels for me at my next lab test? Remember, your doctor is your guide, but you are the captain of your ship of health. Steer it with confidence. Chapter 3, Vindicating Protein and the Wisdom of Nature. Now, I know a thought is forming in some of your minds. When you hear that the sawdust, homocysteine, comes from the log of protein, a natural reflex is to want to cut back on protein. Maybe I should eat less meat, fewer eggs. I implore you, please do not do that. That would be like fearing the sawdust so much that you stop supplying wood to the factory. Without wood, the factory will shut down. Without protein, our bodies cannot repair damage, cannot build muscle to maintain our strength, and cannot sustain the vitality to enjoy life. The problem was never the protein. The problem is a lack of balance. Look at the wisdom of nature. When you eat an egg, eat the whole egg. The yolk contains many of the B vitamins and other nutrients that balance the protein in the white. When you eat a piece of fish or meat, choose cuts that have their natural fat. Nature created them in perfect harmony. When we eat these whole foods, we don't just get protein, we get hundreds of accompanying micronutrients, the very assistants that help our cleanup crew do their job better. Trust in the wisdom of nature. And listen, to trust your own body. It always knows what it needs. There is a sound that I believe is more beautiful than any symphony in the world. It is not the loud sound of victory. It is the quiet sigh of relief from someone who has walked through a storm and sees a rainbow in the distance. A sigh that comes not just from the chest, but from the very depths of the soul. That was my sigh of relief, after so many sleepless nights spent with old books. And it was also the sigh of relief from George, my friend, a sigh I had waited a very long time to hear. So, after all the fumbling, all the anxiety, all the unanswered questions, the final truth revealed itself, and it was surprisingly simple. The silent killer we had feared, it turns out, is not an invincible monster. It is not a fateful sentence sealed by the words old age. It is simply a consequence. A consequence of our body's loyal, cleanup crew being starved, obstructed, or misunderstood. It was just a terrifying shadow cast in a dark room. And once we are brave enough to find the matchstick of knowledge, once we flip the light switch, that shadow vanishes instantly. It loses all of its power over us. The room is the same, but now it is bright, it is tidy, and we know exactly where everything is. We are no longer afraid. And George, my courageous friend? The next call I received from him wasn't a shattered voice in the middle of the night. It was on a bright, beautiful afternoon. He wasn't calling from a cold hospital room. He was calling from the one place he truly belonged, the golf course. I could hear the fresh wind whistling through the microphone. I could hear the birds chirping in the trees. And most importantly, I could hear his crisp, hearty laugh on the other end of the line, a sound I thought I might never hear again. He said, his voice full of excitement, "Harold, I hit a beautiful shot today. A hole in one. I spoke with my doctor. I showed him your notes. And now, I'm paying my cleanup crew a handsome wage every single day. I feel like a dry, withered tree that's been drenched in summer rain. I feel like I've been reborn, Harold." After hanging up, I sat in silence for a long time. Not out of sadness, but from an overwhelming sense of joy. At that moment, I knew for certain that the silent killer had been unmasked and disarmed. Not by some miracle drug, not by magic, but by the most powerful weapon human beings possess, understanding. And today, I want you, the person who is listening to me now, to feel that same sigh of relief. Because you are no longer in the dark. You now know the enemy's name. You know its weapons. And most importantly, you know its weakness. You know how to rearrange the room of your own body, to make it a safe and peaceful place to live. The power is no longer in the hands of chance. It is no longer in the hands of fear. The power is now, fully and completely, in your hands. Isn't that a wonderful feeling? If you feel a sense of relief and a renewed sense of hope after hearing this whole story, please do one last thing for me, as an affirmation for yourself. Please, comment with the number 4. The number of stability, like the 4 seasons, of security, like the 4 walls of a home. So we can spread this belief together, that at any age, we can find our way back to peace of mind and true health. There is an old saying that I hold very dear: it is better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. The journey that George and I went on, the long nights we spent pondering, the documents we read, all of it lit a candle for us. And I believe it would be truly selfish of me to keep that candle only for myself. Because I know that out there are still so many people walking in that dark room, still in need of a small, flickering light to find their way. So, I did something. I spent this past week carefully distilling everything we've talked about today, all 7 of those crucial payments for our heart's guardian army, and I laid it all out on a single page. I call it the 7 fuel checklist for a healthy heart. There are no complex terms. No long-winded explanations. Just a simple list that you can download, print out, and stick on your refrigerator door. Think of it as a loving reminder each day. A reminder that the cleanup crew inside your body needs to be paid in full. This is my small gift to you, the candle I wish to pass on. The link to download it for free is right in the description below this video. Please ask a grandchild or a friend to help you if you need it. And one more thing, this journey can be a lonely one if we have to walk it by ourselves. If you have questions, or your own stories to share, or simply want to find a place where we can all learn from and encourage one another each day, I have created a common home on Facebook. It's a place where we can share our candles, to light up a great, big room together. Please, come and join us. That link is also in the description. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story today. Take care of yourself and the ones you love. I'm Harold, and I believe in the power of understanding, and even more so, in the power of human connection. I'll see you in the next story.